Welcome back to the Bumblebee Hive, everybody. And today we're going to have an interesting show here. We're going to talk about me for a change. We're going to go ahead and have my early day history, what happened at the beginning, just for fun. And we have some videos we're going to go ahead and share with you. So stay tuned. And we have the big Bakersfield race tonight. So we wish everybody good luck and do well. So we're excited. We're going to hear from Russell Green. We're going to start our Northern California week next Sunday night at 7:30, I believe. And then we've got Dave Joyner, and we have Reese Todd in the Hive next week. So you'll want to stay tuned for the Northern California week. But first, we're going to go ahead and talk about when I bought my first Speedway bike. And we're going to talk about my early progression as a Speedway rider. Today I'm going to talk about how I got my first racing bike, my first Speedway bike. It wasn't easy. You know, as a child I mentioned that things were not easy. Like, parents did not want to buy me a motorcycle very easy, and it was never easy. And I used to see like some of the fathers, they used to like buy all their kids bikes and the best of everything, and I was like, why can't I have that? Why can't I have everything so easy? So sometimes things in life are not easy, and my first Speedway bike was not easy. I realized at a young age that if I wanted a motorcycle, I was gonna have to work for it. Like, nobody was gonna buy me a Speedway bike especially. So I was thinking the best thing to do is just save your money, like work and save. So I got a job at the Orange County Register as a paper boy. And I used to like come home from school every day and fold my papers, and then Saturday and Sundays I used to do it early in the morning and deliver. I had like sometimes 50 to 150 subscribers, and I would go deliver every day. Of course, Mondays was a light day, and then Wednesday was heavy, and then Sunday was super heavy with the comics and stuff. So I did that for a few years. I just worked hard. The money I saved. And I thought, if I save enough, I can buy a Speedway bike. It was like a dream, but hey, we must dream. We're acting like we should be. So as I'm saving for my motorcycle, my Speedway bike, I'm going to school every day, and I see this neighbor friend of mine, a childhood friend. We used to ride Speedway bicycles together as a kid, Paul Belial. He used to have a beautiful brand new green Jeep truck, and in the back there was a brand new beautiful Jawa motorcycle. Everything was nice. His family owned Belial's restaurant, so they had some money, and he had beautiful equipment and a beautiful brand new Speedway bike. And when I saw the Speedway bike in the back, I was mad. I was like, this is not right. So I was really wanting a Speedway bike since I saw my friend have a brand new Jawa in the back of his beautiful brand new truck. So I start looking in the papers in the motorcycle department, and I was like looking, and then I saw a Speedway bike for sale. I said, oh, it was like $850 or $750, and I'm like, I like that one. And I had the money. I saving. So I called the number, and they said, come on over and look at the bike. So I went over, and it was a guy who was a friend of Danny Becker's. He said, this was Danny's bike. He gave it to me to sell for Danny. I fell in love with it. It was a JAP. It was not a Jawa, it was a JAP. It looked like in pretty good condition. I think somebody gave it to Danny, and then he rode it a couple times, and then he said, I don't want this thing. So he gave it to his friend to sell. And I said, I'll take it. I want that motorcycle. Give it to me. I don't care what it is. It's a Speedway bike. I'll take it. I don't like what you be called. So I bought the Speedway bike, and I brought it home, and my mom was like, "What in the world is this?" And I said, "Mom, it's a Speedway bike." And I think she had a heart attack. She's like, "Oh my gosh, Brian is like crazy now. He bought a Speedway motorcycle." And I was like, "I love this thing." And I would start it up in the front of my house on Loretta, and I would drive it up and down the street. It had like a straight pipe, very loud, and it did wheelies and stuff like that, and it was just like a crazy monster dragon. And I was like, I like that one. I like it. Speedway bikes are fun, like a crazy dragon monster. They are. It was crazy. I mean, all the neighbors called the police on me all the time. They said, "If you start that Speedway bike one more time, I'm going to call the Orange PD on you." And I said, "Go ahead, because I'm going to ride that Speedway bike one more time." But first, and actually what I did is I rode up and down the street real fast, and then I hid the bike in the garage. And then when the police came up and down the street, I was not on the street no more. I was watching out the window. So I had a Speedway bike, and that was a great start. But I needed more, and I was studying about the Speedway, and I realized you had to have a pair of leathers to race. You cannot go out in your bathing suit and race Speedway. So I knew I had to have a pair of leathers, but the season was almost over, and I didn't have much money because it was all dumped into my Speedway bike. So I had to dig around and find a pair of leathers. So that's how it all began with the Speedway. Is I got my license for Costa Mesa, and I decided I will ride. I will ride. And so I will tell you more about my first races. My first races at Costa Mesa. But now I have a Speedway bike, and I have a license, and I'm gonna race. I'm gonna race. Race. I don't care how I do, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna race. One of the things I was missing was a uniform. I had no leathers. So I was looking for sale in the paper for some leathers, and I saw a uniform for sale. It was by a Speedway rider named Ron Taylor. Do you remember Ron Taylor? He was a little guy, and he was selling his uniform, and it was like $50 or something. I don't know what it was, but I bought it. And he was very tiny, and I was very big, and it didn't fit me. But I wore that uniform, my first uniform, and it didn't really fit me. I was like the Incredible Hulk walking through this thing. Ron Taylor's uniform. I went ahead and put my name on the front and duct tape, just tape my name, Bryan, on the front, because on the front and duct tape, just tape my name, Bryan, on the front, because I didn't want to get the leathers worked on because they're so small. I knew I would outgrow them. So I went ahead and duct taped my name and my number on the back. And I was ready for my first race at Costa Mesa. Woo! But first, you must have a rider's license. You have to have an SRA driver's license, Speedway license back in the day. And I had to get that Speedway license at the OCIR. And it was a fun event. And before I actually could race, I went ahead and got the Speedway license. So now I had this Speedway bike. I was like, what are you going to do with it? You're going to just like look at it in your garage? And I said, no, I will ride this bike. I bought it to ride it, not to look at it. So I talked to my friends like Paul and other guys. I'm like, hey, what do I ride this thing? You know, I don't know what to do. And they said, go to OCIR and practice. So I said, oh, okay. So I went to OCIR, Orange County International Raceway. It's closed now, but at that time it was open. And I got on the bike and rode the first time on my speed bike. And the first turn, just like my mini bikes, the first turn I fell down. I'm like, ah! And I'm like, God, what was that all about? And I did that on my mini bike too when I raced my first time, but I was just practicing. I get up and I said, don't fall again like that. Never fall again. And I never fall again like that. Just like the mini bikes. So I get up and I start riding a little bit and trying to slide it. And I'm like, wow, this is really weird. And so I just figured I need to start racing Speedway. It was the end of the Speedway season at Costa Mesa. It was only like a month or so left in the season. It was like August or something like that. You know, the racing season gets over with in like September. So I contacted someone from the Speedway and I said, I want to ride. And I said, I want to ride Speedway. I don't know what I'm doing, but I want to ride. And this guy named John was the referee and he did the licensing. So he said, you need to go to OCIR and then you need to do a practice test and you need to do a physical. So I said, okay. So I did my physical, of course I passed. And then I did the riding test and I guess I did okay. And then he said, okay, fall. You must fall, you must crash. And I'm like, I never crashed before on purpose. I never crashed before on purpose. So I went ahead and said, okay, I will fall. So I rode the bike and I did a really nice fall, like, and then he said, you passed, you got your license. You can race Speedway now at Costa Mesa Speedway. You can race Speedway at the Costa Mesa boring Speedway track. Yeah, you can race. Now you have a uniform and you have a Speedway license and you're legal to drive, to ride that Speedway bike. We don't know how good you are. Probably after a week or so, you're probably a D4 rider, right? Oh my gosh. So I went ahead and opened the program. I have it right here. And I saw that there was a guy by the name of Dennis Sigalos in my first race while I was on the program. So let's see what happened in that first race in D3 at Costa Mesa.
Every single day, I'm gonna make something great. That's my way. Every single day, I'm gonna make.
Come back, and we have the first D3 race with Dennis Sigalos, his first and only D3 at Costa Mesa Speedway. He actually passed me on the inside. I always thought it was the outside, but Dennis just, he went through me. It's just a short clip, so don't expect too much. But this is a few videos of the D3 days of the Bumblebee, and Dennis Sigalos was in the first race. It's kind of fun, so check it out. That's it, D3 days. We all got to start somewhere, and we just have to have that heart just to go for it. I had no gloves, and I just had like my name with duct tape on my front. I didn't care. Go and run it. After a week or so of riding Speedway, I thought I was a D1 rider until I got on the racetrack. I realized I wasn't a D1 rider at the time.
Love that town, reflecting in the window.
I stunt the Speedway experiences with rider profiles so I don't get tired. So I'll blog a rider and then I'll blog a racing experience of mine so I don't get tired too, and you don't get tired, hopefully. And today I'm going to tell about my craziest experience in Speedway, and you may not believe that, but I'm going to tell you this. Started when I was just a young boy. I used to play Pop Warner football in Orange, California. I played for the Orange Panthers.
Half the night, daytime, half the light and
and this story has to deal with one of my teammates who was a wide receiver on the Orange Panther. I went to Speedway my whole life, and I saw this one rider. He was a D3 rider, and he was on my team on the Orange Panthers. Like I said, a wide receiver. And I was really shocked. You know, I'd see somebody I know racing Speedway. So I won't say his name because I don't want to embarrass him, but I went ahead and said, "Hi, so-and-so," and he said, like, "Hi, like, punk." And so I was very excited. I rooted for him, and you know, very happy. And you know, he's riding D3 where I was going to be riding soon the next year. And I start riding D3. I was riding with this guy, probably. I was riding with him, I think. I was a crappy rider. We're all like not good in D3, and of course I didn't know anything and stuff. And then I'm riding, and then, like I mentioned in my book,
generations lost, blinded by the cost. We ended up with nothing.
and then, like I mentioned in my blog, I got a little better, and I went ahead and raced for the King of the Hill championship the following year. I won a lot of main events.
We're half the light.
Won a lot of main events, scratch, handicap, did really well.
We're half the light. We're half the light.
And this guy who was in D3 with me, he stayed in D3. He never got any better. I won't mention his name. And he was getting mad at me and jealous, I guess. And I never talked to the guy. I never said a word. I never smiled or nothing to him. I was busy signing autographs after the races and winning main events and practicing my craft of racing Speedway. But I guess this guy, was jealous or got mad at me or something like that. I never had any hard feelings towards anyone, so I don't know why he was so mad, but I think he saw that I was getting a lot of notoriety. I was successful in the sport of Speedway, and maybe he wasn't doing as well, so I think he got mad. So that was something I didn't know was happening because I'm so busy with my own life. I'm not focusing on what others think about me, because you know, in life a lot of people don't like you, and you just don't have time to worry about what people think of you. And that's the way I was. I didn't worry about if somebody loved me or hated me. I was so busy focusing on winning races and being successful. So there I was riding D3, and I just kind of got advanced pretty good. I took some lessons from Dangerous Dub Farrell after that first 2 weeks of that end of that season, and I started developing myself, and I didn't realize there was jealous Speedway riders, but people get crazy sometimes. And I'm just going to tell you another continue the early days Speedway story. of this guy. It didn't stop right there with jealousy. It moved on to another level. The next year, I was racing Speedway at South Bay Speedway in San Diego. I had completely forgot about this guy. I just got really good at the track, and I was really busy trying to win and be successful in main events and the King of the Hill. Flying on cloud 9, but at the end of the night I was very tired. You know, you race and you're just really tired. I had a 2-hour drive home, so I knew in San Diego I had a long drive in my van. So I'm pulling out, and all of a sudden there's another van that cuts me off and comes in front of me, and I'm like, what is this? And the guy is the same guy that I used to play football with, and he blocked me from like leaving, and he cut me off, and I'm like, okay, because I didn't like pay attention to that guy. I was really busy, and the guy pulls out this big knife. It's a huge knife, and he starts flashing it in front of me and says, I will kill you, I'm gonna cut your neck off, and I'm gonna like stab you. And I'm like, what? And I was very shocked, and the guy started threatening me like he was gonna kill me right now. And I think he was like on cocaine or something, like drugs, because I was like, he was crazy. And you know, and he was a nice guy. I mean, he's not a bad guy, but he says I got his head going crazy. So I was like kind of scared, so I just like drove around him in my truck and left the races. And I was kind of scared. Normally you don't get threatened with a big knife that you think someone's gonna kill you. So I went and told my friends about it and explained that, what is this? And my friend said, don't worry about it, we'll protect you. And I said, oh, very nice. So I was threatened by this guy. I had no idea what was going on. I was really pretty much in a state of shock, you know, when this happened. This is just really weird. So I had to go tell somebody about it, and I had some pretty good friends. So I was kind of nervous because I'm really not used to people threatening to kill me every day. So I had to talk about it with some of my buddies. I'm talking to my friends, Ernie Rocio, and I told him the story. I said, this guy pulled a knife on me. And then he said, I'll talk to my brother Johnny. And he goes, Johnny, come here. So Johnny comes over and he says, what do you want? Bryan, tell the story about this guy pulling a knife on you. So I told him the story. And Johnny says, don't worry, I'll take care of you. Now, Ernie and Johnny were from some very special, famous Speedway family. Their uncle was the famous Ernie Rocio. My friend's name's Ernie, and his uncle's name's Ernie. And he died in 1952 racing Speedway in England. Ernie was a very good racer. He raced in the World Finals the year before he died. He was like a star rider. And I guess he got in a crash. Something got in his eyes. He tried getting the pull-ups, and then he ended up crashing into the pole or something and died. So it's a very tragic, very terrible event. Ernie said, we will join you and we'll make sure this thug doesn't hurt you. And I didn't even ask him to do that. And I said, okay, let's do that one. So they're getting ready for Costa Mesa, and guess who's with me? Ernie and Johnny. It's nice to have good friends, right? I didn't even ask for that. And they said, Bryan, we like you, you're a buddy, and we're gonna be by your side. So what happened here? We're gonna find out what happened here. With this guy, he would not stop. He would not stop until he was stopped, okay? So we're gonna see what happened with this thug. The next week at Costa Mesa, I raced, and I think I was in D1 at the time, and I did good. After the races, I'm in the pits cleaning up my stuff and taking it to my van, and this rider who I have 28 mutual friends, so I know that, you know, a lot of you know who he is, and I don't want to say his name because, like, it's embarrassing. And he's a nice guy, I'm sure, and I don't really know him very well still, but it doesn't matter. But after the races, this guy comes up to me, kind of crazy, and he like threatens me. He says, I will beat you up, I'm gonna punch you out. And I'm like, what's up, dude? You know, like, why you like do this? And my friend Ernie Rocio, he had this big sling over his chest. He had this big sling over his chest from the injury. He had a broken collarbone. And Ernie like said, like, F you, dude, like, what are you doing this for, you know? And then this rider, who a lot of you know, he went up to Ernie, who was handicapped. And he said, I will beat your, you know, effing face and stuff. And I'm like, whoa, he come up to me and wanted to beat me up. And now he goes to my handicapped partner, Ernie. He wants to beat him up. And this guy's like tall. He's like 6'4", you know, he's a big guy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know, what is this? And then he's ready to beat up this guy who's handicapped with an injury from racing. And then his little brother, Johnny, who happens to be a black belt in karate, he just told this rider, like, hey, over here, come here, I want to talk to you. And then this rider goes from me to Ernie to the brother, Johnny, and starts giving him crap, like he's gonna beat him up. And Johnny's a black belt, like I mentioned, and he just went ahead and took about 30 punches on the guy's face in like 2 seconds, knocked him out cold in the pits at Costa Mesa. And I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. So I was shocked. I never said for him to punch anybody, and he knocked his guy out. I'm not gonna mention his name. He knocked him cold out, and I'm like, and you know, of course, a fight, you know, in the pits, everyone looking at you. So everyone, and so we just walked away, you know, like Johnny, Ernie, and I just like, okay, goodbye. We walked away, and I'm like, and everyone's like, oh my gosh. And this guy's like laid out cold on the concrete. He like went down, and I'm like, this guy got what he deserved, you know. The guy's a punk, you know. He's everyone was scared of me. They're like, Bryan is badass, you know. And he has friends that are like the mafia, so do not mess with Bryan the Bumblebee. And I'm like, okay, don't mess with me. And nobody messed with me. So the next week at Costa Mesa, I raced the D1 again, and I was nervous. Like, this guy, he like wouldn't go away. He kept like bothering me, and this time he got nailed. This guy got knocked cold. And so I was thinking, oh God, you know. So I saw this guy after the races in the pits at Costa Mesa. If you race at Costa Mesa in the old days, you know there's lots of vans, and, you know, it's a small area, and it's kind of like not very open. And I saw the guy, and he's like, peace, peace, peace. He was like scared. And I'm glad he like backed off, because I didn't want him to hurt no more. I didn't want him hurt at all. Like, I don't like people getting hurt, but the guy like got crazy, and he got his butt reamed for being crazy. And that's kind of the story. We're still not really friends on Facebook, I think, and I don't want to mention his name because he's probably a good guy, you know, like, I don't want to insult the guy, but the guy just got crazy, and, you know, I guess he was always a D3 rider. He never, you know, got to D2. He was just a guy who come from a rich family or whatever and just never really learned how to ride very well. And I guess he was jealous of me, like he was jealous of me. I was poor, you know, like this guy I think was rich. He had a rich papa and I had a poor family, and I had a heart, you know, like I wanted to race Speedway, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. And so in life, whatever you do, if you have a heart for something, you will succeed. And I learned that lesson in my racing. I had a heart for racing. I wanted to win. I wanted to be successful. I just wanted to like reach the top of the hill, you know, like race D1, and I wanted to race the big guys. I didn't care if I stayed there forever. I didn't need to ride for 65 years, you know. I didn't need that. I didn't need to be a world champion or whatever. I just wanted to get there, and you know, I think I got there, but I just wanted to be a good rider. So that's my story about the fight. It was like crazy, and I never expected it, and you know, it was just something really weird experience. But in life, you never know what's gonna happen. But that was just an experience, and if you see this, if you're the guy that got punched out, I'm sorry, you know, I'm sorry that this happened, and you know, like I wish it never happened, and I wish you would have like calmed down a little bit too. Yeah, I don't like that too much, but hey, that's life, right? But I didn't worry about that no more because he was gone, and I actually was always focused on my racing. I really didn't care about all that drama and jealousy. I was too busy working hard and trying to win the King of the Hill match race champion every week in San Diego, where I got that knife pulled on me in the van. I worked hard to actually succeed as a Speedway racer. They had this big, beautiful cup. It's right here, this big, beautiful cup right behind me. We're going to talk about that right now. That's the King of the Hill match race champion at the Otay Mesa San Diego Speedway. Do you know Otay Mesa? Well, you will right now. So they had 3 of us compete for the King of the Hill match race champion. It was me, Larry Costa, and Brad Oxley. But because I had left so long and came back, I was in 2nd place in the most wins in the King of the Hill. And Brad was number 1. So Brad got to wait as in a bye, and it was between 2nd place and 3rd place, which was me and Costa. And Costa's dad donated that beautiful cup.
Only to keep out all the sweat.
Well, I had to do the best 2 out of 3 match races with Larry Costa first. And I beat him, I think, twice in a row. I can't remember, but I kind of beat him pretty good.
If all you knew was gold, all along you've been a fool.
So it came to the final. It was me and Brad Oxley, and I wanted that cup. I had an interview with the announcer that time, and Harry Oxley and his tuner George Wynn was there, and the whole clan. And I was like, I want to win that cup. I want that cup. And they interviewed me right before the race of the match race, the final. And I was kind of like bragging. I was like, I'm going to win this cup. I'm going to beat Brad and I'm going to win this cup. And people afterwards said, did you know what you said? You said you're going to beat Oxley and you're going to win that cup. And I said, I will win that cup. I don't care what I said. And I was thinking, you're a bragger. You know, you're saying you're going to beat Brad Oxley. I wanted that cup.
Your head, you know, you might as well.
So the finals came between me and Brad. And it was the best 2 out of 3 match races. And I don't remember if I won all 3 or 2 out of 3. I can't.
All along you thought that
I won that cup and I was happy.
all you knew was gold. All along you've been.
My first championship, my first year racing Speedway at age 17, still a junior in high school at Elmo, I won that championship. I didn't care if it was Brad Oxley or whoever, it didn't matter. I wanted that cup and I got it. And I keep it to this day. It's very beautiful. That was my ending at Chula Vista South Bay Speedway. The track I think closed after the end of the year. But that big beautiful cup that I saw every day at the sign-up booth, that became in my home and I loved it. That was my first championship and that was Brad's first championship also, and we just fought, you know, we just fought for that and we, you know, dug in and, you know, I got that thing, so I was very happy. And that's good memories. And the last time we raced at South Bay Park and it closed, but I got the cup.
All along you thought that you.
So I became King of the Hill match race champion and it was really good. And then I start racing D1 at Costa Mesa, Ventura, San Bernardino, Bakersfield. I started racing D1 and I won like, I think 6 handicap main events that year. My first year, I won 6 handicap main events. That was good. I was very happy. So the end of the first year was great. So that was the first year of Speedway. I was on fire, I think, and I had a good year, a great year, considering I came from D3 and did that in D1 at age 17. Not so shabby. Not shabby at all, but I didn't realize it at the time. I was the last D1 rider to win main events on a JAP Speedway bike in American history, not just like in that year. Nobody has ever won D1 main events after me when I was winning on that long stroke JAP. I didn't realize that. And then I started thinking like, oh yeah, God, there's been no other riders winning main events on a JAP because nobody rode a JAP at that time but me. And I was racing all the tracks and I had won several handicap main events on that JAP. And you know what? I just had no respect at all. Welcome back. We're here at the beach today. I hope you're having a great day. We're here at the beautiful Rock, the famous Rock in Boracay. And today we're going to talk about an event that happened some years ago. And it was a wheelie crash at the main event finish line. A friend of mine on Facebook, he asked me if I ever crashed my motorcycle at the Santa Ana Bowl, and I said, no, I didn't crash, I won all the time. And then I thought about it, like, oh yeah, I crashed that one time. It was opening night at the Santa Ana Bowl. Louis Kasuth, he went ahead and he invited me to race at his racetrack, the quarter-mile racetrack around the football field. And I liked it. It was fast, smooth, and it was really great. So I was excited. I was the first one there that night on opening night. I was so excited to see myself on the program. I had raced D1 at several tracks and won many main events, or at least a few. and I was expecting to be on D1. So when the program came, I was the first one to open the program, like, where am I in D1? And all of a sudden I looked and I said, I'm not on D1. And I had a D2 scratch race. And I'm like, what? D2? So I was kind of ticked off, and I went ahead and went straight to Louie, and I said, hey Louie, why aren't I on D1? You stick me in D2. That's totally uncool, man. And then he said, well, I don't know, what's the problem? I go, I don't want to be in D2. I want to be in D1 with the fast guys. I don't want to be there. And he's like, okay, maybe next week. Okay, I go, you better promise me next week you'll put me in D1. He's like, okay. So I was mad. I was really pissed off. The year before, the same thing happened in San Diego, California. They had a practice, and I was probably one of the top riders there. And then the opening day came. I went to the racetrack to think that I was going to have a good spot on the program, and I wasn't even on the program. Talk about no respect. No respect at all. And I went up to the promoter and I said, why aren't I on the program? And they said, I don't know. And I said, dude, I want to be on the program. So they said, you must sign up as reserve. I said, reserve? What the heck? So I went in. I was third reserve. There was 2 guys signed up before me. And I thought, this is BS. So I went ahead and signed up thinking I'm never going to ride that night. And then the third reserve happened because the rider, Denny Scopoletti, he got to ride on the the San Bernardino team when they had the team racing. And I got to race. And I went ahead and did really well. I was mad. Back to Santa Ana, I had my first race at Santa Ana, scratch race, and I won that easily. And then I was in the semi-main event in D2, and I won that pretty easily too. And then I went to the main event, and I was just pissed off the whole night. I was really mad, and I had a bad gate in the main event. I was in third place off the gate, and I'm like, this BS, and I was so angry. I think I'd never been so mad in my life. So I just went ahead and rode really hard, and I picked off the second place guy. And then I said, okay, there's one more guy. So I went ahead the last lap. It took me the 3 laps to catch that guy. They were fast in the main. And I caught that guy, and I went ahead, and I'm like, yeah. I was so excited because I wanted to show Louie he made a big mistake by putting me in D2. So I was so angry inside. I said, I'm going to make the biggest wheelie in the world over the finish line. You know how a 17-year-old kid thinks. Not good, not good. So I went ahead, and when I finished the race, right at the checkered flag, I did this monster wheelie straight up and down. And my bike, it hit one of those starting ruts. You know when you start the races, you make the big holes? It hit one of those holes at the starting line, at the finish line. I had won the main event, but my bike bounced up, and I jumped off. It was like a rocket ship, and I landed on my knees, and the bike went boing, 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 all the way down the track. It was crazy. And I was on my knees, and I stood up, and the whole crowd, it was packed house, they were cheering, and I bowed. I was like, yeah. So I bowed for them, and I became the fan favorite at that time. And I got safety instructions from the referee after that particular race. But that was the race that I became a crowd favorite at the Santa Ana Bowl. Everybody liked the Bumblebee. After the crash and the wheelie, it cost all my money that I had made in that main event to fix the bent frame and other broken things on the motorcycle. The next week came, and I was on the program. I was in D1, finally. And I went ahead and had a very successful year. I missed the first night because I was in D2, but I went ahead and was the top point getter of the year in D1. I was really happy. and I was on the World Qualifier program cover. I had lots of write-ups. I had swept the program 2 times. All the scratch races, all the handicap races I had won. I swept that program, and it was just a great year. I had a wonderful year. The track lasted only 1 year and then it closed, but we had a really good year. I always remember Kobe Bryant. He used to use things to motivate him, and he used to do really good. And I did the same thing with San Diego and with the Santa Ana Bowl when they put me in 2nd division. I was angry, and I used that to motivate me the whole year, and it drove me for success. I find things that make me mad, and I just like relive them, and it drives me. It helps me become better. So that's the Santa Ana Bowl crash, the one and only crash. I was showboating, and everybody loved it. I got lots of fans, and I would do it all over again if I could. It was a lot of fun, and nobody got hurt. So thank you so much for subscribing, and you can go ahead and like the other videos here all over the place, and subscribe. We thank you so much for joining the blog, my blog, and subscribing to the channel. So please like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. Ring that bell. Oh boy. You know, I rode better when I was mad. I had an edge to me. I didn't realize that because I wasn't really mad that much. But when I got pissed, I think it came from my mother. She was really mad. And I'm not mad hardly at all. But when I get ticked off, I think I get mad. And I ride better when I'm pissed off, when I'm on the edge. And you know, when I'm happy, I don't do very well. But when I think like I'm getting cheated or something like that, or I feel, you know, like bad things happen, I go ahead and I ride pretty good. So I had some pretty good rides in D1 back in that day. I like to race motorcycles, and when I was 16 I bought the bike. I wasn't very good, and I just practiced really hard. You know, practice makes perfect. And by the age of 17, the following year, my first full season racing motorcycles, I went through like Division 2 and to Division 1. I had a lot of learning experience. I learned how to really fight and to really hang on and to win a motorcycle race. I won like 6 main events my first year. I think several of them were at Costa Mesa Speedway. One was against Alan Crazy Christian and Brad Oxley. Another main event I won was in Ventura Raceway against Bruce Penhall. He got second place right behind me, riding my tail, and Kelly Moran. Also, I won a main event in Bakersfield. I don't remember who I raced. I think it was Dub Farrell and a few other guys. But they were really good, and I won one there. And I think most of my races I won, and especially the main events, were at Costa Mesa Speedway. Well, that's it. Early day racing speedway at Costa Mesa and other tracks. It was really fun. The D1 was a fabulous experience. Such good riders. I was a young, skinny kid, and I had no fear, so it was perfect. All young, skinny kids do really well racing speedway. And now, of course, I'm kind of like not young and I'm not skinny. I'm very fat. But anyways, that's another topic. We won't talk about that right now. But thanks so much for watching, and I appreciate you subscribing to the channel. It really means a lot to me, and I have some loyal fans, and I appreciate that. Some nice comments, and I just try to do my best. I hope my content is interesting to you, and even if you don't know much about, let's say, motorcycle races, at least you learn something new. So thanks so much, like I say, for subscribing. Ring the bell, like, subscribe, and just go ahead and enjoy the channel. So thanks so much for joining, and we'll see you next time. Yeah, we're gonna see you next race. That was fun. Those were the good old days, that's for sure. Racing Bruce Penhall was really fun. I think the Oxleys got mad at me for beating Brad in that King of the Hill Match Race Championship. So they kept putting me against all the good riders in D1 when they made the program for Ventura and Costa Mesa. Every time I would open the program, it would be Bruce the Fox Penhall. I would race Bruce all the time. I'm like, hey, this is not fair, because I knew Bruce was a very special rider. And I wanted to race against an easier rider, but that was not the case. I actually did win one main event against Bruce at the Ventura. I just talked about it in the blog. And I had a first experience with Bruce Penhall. I'm going to play right now. But at the second time or third time when I was racing Bruce in a main, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to beat this guy. I don't care what. I had a little advantage, too. I was a little bit low yardage rider, and Bruce was a little high yardage rider in the handicap main, so I was cheating a little bit, but it didn't matter. 6 laps, these fast guys can catch you in a real hurry if you're not fast. But I went ahead and got Bruce, and that was a real great experience. But we're going to talk about my first race ever in D1 against Bruce Penhall, and it was a disaster. my sister, she pushes me off. And I get to the starting line and I'm like, I think I'm by myself. And I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, these guys are gonna kill me back there. And you know, I'm home clutching and the tape goes up and I'm off. And I'm scared, right? You know, like when I'm scared, I just have to go faster because I'm like nervous. So I'm just riding my race and I'm in first place, you know, the whole 5 laps or whatever, or 4 or 5 laps. I'm in first place. I'm like, this is pretty good. Like, I'm enjoying this race. And the fast guys were behind me. And then all of a sudden, on the last lap, I felt pressure coming from behind me. And I'm like, uh-oh, who is that? And I kind of peek a little, and there's Bruce Penhall. And I kind of peek a little, and there's Bruce Penhall, the famous Bruce Penhall next to me. And he's riding like a devil, you know, like, and I'm like, oh, faster. And I made a bobble coming out of turn 3 and 4 at Costa Mesa, just a little bobble, just poof. And Penhall just like, he snuck around the outside of me, and I'm like, oh. And every muscle must be torn. And Penhall just like, he snuck around the outside of me, and I'm like, oh, faster. And at the finish line, Penhall, he beat me by a wheel length, maybe a half a meter, just a little. And it was my first race in D1. I was running pretty fast, but Penhall was running fast too, like always. And so I was like, okay, Bryan, okay, you got second place to Bruce Penhall. At least you got Rick Woods, you know. But I was pretty happy. I'm like, hey, you know, like Penhall barely squeaked by me, you know, and that was good for a first timer. So I was very happy. And then we go around turn 1 and 2. After the race was over, we slowed down, and Penhall slowed down next to me. So I thought, oh, this is great, Penhall, you know. He were gonna shake my hand, so I put my hand out to shake Penhall's hand, and Penhall kicks my bike. He like kicks my bike, and I go flying into the wall. You know, we were slow. We were going like slow. And I go crashing into the wall like I'm laying on my bike. I'm like, what the hell was this? And I was shaking Penhall's hand, and he's kicking my bike, you know, like, and I'm crashing, you know, after the race was over. We were going like 5 miles an hour, you know. I didn't get hurt, but I was very shocked, you know, like, what the hell is this? So anyways, I kind of get up and say, Bryan, just don't say anything. This is Bruce Penhall. So I'm walking in the pits, and my sister has my bike, and then she drops my bike, and she goes running up to Penhall to like fight Bruce Penhall. And she's like, what did you do to my brother? Why did you do that? And I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my gosh, Bruce Penhall, don't do that one. And then she's ready to fight Bruce Penhall. She goes, don't you ever do that to my brother. I will beat you up. And Bruce Penhall is like mad at my sister and kind of giving her a little lip. And then my sister's yelling at Bruce. And this is like my first race, right? And I was like shocked. And so I was like grabbing my sisters by the waist saying, come back, it's Bruce Penhall, like leave him alone. It's famous Bruce Penhall, like don't mess with him, you know. She goes, I don't care, you mess with my brother. So they're fighting like, ah. And I'm like, oh no, what a disaster. I was like, I just want peace, you know, and then they're fighting. So my sister said, why did you do that to my brother? I'm very mad at you. And Bruce said, well, your brother doesn't know how to fix his motorcycle. His chain guard was flying off and almost hit me in the head. And in those days, we had these like big, heavy aluminum chain guards. And I looked down at my bike and my chain guard was missing. And it flew off and it nearly hit Penhall in the head. I think he was trying to pass me. These like big heavy aluminum chain guards, and I looked down at my bike and my chain guard was missing, and it flew off and it nearly hit Penhall in the head. I think he was trying to pass me, and then I think it almost hit him or something, and he was pissed. Penhall was mad, and my sister was mad, and they were like fighting. And I was like, Debbie, it's Bruce Penhall. Like, it's okay. Just, you know, let him go. You know, it's Bruce Penhall. And she's like, don't you ever do that to my brother. I will beat you up. And Bruce Penhall was like, shut up, you know, and he's all mad and everything. So I don't think Bruce Penhall liked me much after that, but I didn't really mean anything. I was just a 17-year-old skinny kid, you know, like shy, first year racing Speedway, happy to be there. I mean, hey, you know, racing these guys, how could you be like arrogant? I was very humble and I was very like shy. And I'm like, and my sister stood up for me, and so I guess that was good. She really loved her brother, and she said, don't you play with my brother. And so that was my story of Bruce Penhall and my first thing. And I don't blame Bruce for being mad, because I wasn't a very good mechanic, you know, like I didn't even know how to hardly work on bikes. I think I could ride a bike, but I'm not really known as a mechanic, so I probably screwed up for sure and didn't tighten the bolt or something. But so Bruce was pissed off at me, and I don't think Bruce really liked me after that, but I always respect Bruce Penhall and Rick Woods, and those guys are like legends and idols to me. And of course, it was just a bad experience. So that's my experience. My first D1 race with Bruce Penhall and Rick Woods. And Bruce Penhall and my sister like almost got in a fight. It was funny. So that was a memory that I will never forget. I told Bruce Penhall about that when he was on the show the other day. And Bruce apologized. He said, really? That happened? And he's a nice guy, Bruce, and he likes me today. So thank God, you know, I thought he hated me forever. And so I felt really bad. And Bruce did a show with me. He's a really great guy. He's an amazing guy, just a class act, Bruce the Fox Penhall. And we're going to do another show. Maybe we'll play that video for Bruce. What do you think? Bruce didn't even remember that. And I remember that because it happened to me. And I've always idolized Bruce Penhall, you know, like he's always been a hero. So I just felt so shy and so sad that Bruce hated me. That's how I was introduced to Bruce Penhall, is in a fight. So, and almost taking his head off with my chain guard. So it was kind of a disaster, and it was pretty much my fault. So I do apologize to Bruce Penhall for almost killing him on the racetrack. And I really wanted to beat him, and I was pretty sad he beat me by a whisker. But that's racing, right? And so we had some good days, and we had some bad days. And that was kind of a good, bad day. And we raced at the Santa Ana Bowl. That was actually a good day. They actually had a rider's strike about that time. And a lot of the riders stopped riding at Costa Mesa, and there was no track for the riders. And so we went ahead and we had actually the Santa Ana Bowl because of the strike. My tuner, Jerry Fairchild, he was the president of the SRA, and the SRA was kicked out by Harry Oxley. So it was a big disaster. That was horrible. That really ruined my racing days for sure, because I loved racing at Costa Mesa. And then I found out that there was another track called the Santa Ana Bowl, but I had to follow my captain, my leader, my mechanic. I had no choice in the matter, and that was just a disaster in itself. But we're going to talk a little bit about the Santa Ana days, and there was some good days indeed ahead. Welcome to my channel, and thank you so much for subscribing. Today we're going to talk about the Santa Ana Bowl Speedway. Do you know what about the Santa Ana Bowl? Did you remember that racetrack? It was really cool. The Santa Ana Bowl was located in Santa Ana, California. It was promoted by Louis Kossuth. Do you remember Louis Kossuth? Rest in peace, Louis. He had passed away. He owned a 76 gas station over in Brea off of like Imperial Highway. I met Louis there a few times. He was a nice man, Louis Kossuth. So it was around a football stadium. It was one of the first long tracks in California. And Louis asked me, hey Bryan, do you want to ride on my new track? And I said, why not? I never rode around a football stadium. So I went ahead and said, sign me up, Louis. I want to ride that track. It was located right below the Orange County Jail by the Civic Center where all the courthouses are. And I thought that would be cool. I look up and all the prisoners at the jail were like watching the Speedway. So I said, I must do good for them. I opened the program and I was in D2, and I'm like, what the heck, I'm in D2. I said, I've got to go to D1 on this thing. Bill Cody and Denny Pyatt and John Cook and these kind of riders were on the program in D1, and I'm in D2. And I said, that's not fair. So I went ahead, and opening night, Bill Cody won the Scratch Main in Division 1, and I won the Scratch Main in Division 2. And I did this wheelie over the finish line, and I flipped the bike, and the bike went flying high in the air and bouncing, bong, bong, bong. And I won the main event, and all the crowd cheered. I had a write-up. I'll see if I can find that one. So I went up to Louie and I said, hey Louie, I won that D2 Scratch Main event. Put me in D1 next week. And he said, we'll do, Bryan, we'll do. And I said, that was the last time they ever put me in D2 at the Santa Ana Bowl. The next week, Louie honored his word and he put me in D1. Very good, Louie. And I went ahead and I won like a main event. And I said, okay, keep me in D1. And I went ahead and I swept the program, I think twice. And I ended up just being like a 40 or 50 yard line rider in D1. They went ahead and put me in D1, and I ended up like doing really well. And I just love that track around that football stadium. It was just great. It was fast, it was fun. I love to pass guys. And actually that's where I got the name Bumblebee. And I will tell you how that will start. The next week, Louie honored his word and he put me in D1. Very good, Louie. And I went ahead and I won like a main event. And I said, okay, keep me in D1. And I went ahead and I swept the program, I think twice. And I ended up just being like a 40 or 50 yard line rider in D1. They went ahead and put me in D1, and I ended up like doing really well. And I just love that track around that football stadium. It was just great. It was fast, it was fun. I love to pass guys. And actually that's where I got the name Bumblebee. As a 40 or 50 yard line rider in D1, I had to start in the back of the pack. I remember, like I said, winning both handicap and scratch mains at least twice. One when my mother was there. I won all 6 races, and my mom had a heart attack. She said, I don't like this Speedway. But I was starting at the 40 or 50 yard line, and the announcer, he said, oh my gosh, Bryan's passing guys like a bumblebee, because I really like to pass guys. That's actually my favorite part of racing, is passing. I don't like to get passed, but I like to pass guys. The announcer said, he looks like a bumblebee out there. So he started calling me Bumblebee, and he came up to me and he said, Bryan, I have a new nickname after the races. Your name is the Bumblebee. You pass like a bumblebee. I like that. So I said, oh, I like that too. So my name from back when I was 17 years old was the Bumblebee.
Yeah, the Bumblebee. How about that? And it was really cool. I really enjoyed that. I was not expecting that, but I guess up high, if you're sitting up high and you're looking down at the track, we look like little bees out there. And I was liking to pass the people like, it was fun. The Bumblebee was a really cool thing, and I was honored to have that name because I like to look like a bumblebee on the Speedway track.
I hope you're having a great day. Today we're going to talk a couple stories that happened in my second year of racing D1. Many of you wonder, how did you get the name Bumblebee? I don't know. Actually, I do know. It came from the Santa Ana Bowl. We were just talking about that place. The announcer was very high up. And as I mentioned, I used to race at like the 60 or 70 yard line in the handicap racing. And I like to pass people. I like to win. I like to win. And when I was young, I was fast. Now, no, but before I was fast. And when the race started in handicap, I was at the, like say around the 60 or 70, something like that. And I would just like race really hard. I was going full speed. And I would see the frontline riders in front of me and I would like pass them. And actually passing became one of my specialties. I like to pass. And the announcer, he sat really high up on, and he would look down on the racetrack and he said to himself, that rider looks like a bumblebee. He looks like a bee. So he started calling me the Bumblebee, and that's how I got the Bumblebee name. I was riding looking like a bee going, yow, 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 yow. So that's how the bee came from Santa Ana announcer at the Santa Ana Bowl. I'll tell you one experience that happened to me. A lot of the riders, their parents, as they're young teenagers, they support them and they're with them. But my mother hated motorcycles. She just hated me racing. She was just scared of me getting hurt, I guess. And she never came to my races the whole time. She never did anything. My parents never came to my races. They loved me, they supported me, they helped me, but they did not like the races. So one night I asked my mother, please, please come to the races. I promise I'm gonna win for you. And she didn't want to go. And I said, please. And finally I begged her. And then she said, okay, I will go this one time only. And I said, oh my gosh, the one time only. And so during the night, every time I got up to the starting line on handicap or scratch, I was thinking, this is the only time my mother's gonna watch me. And I got to win this race. I must win. So I won every race that night. I won all 3 handicap races and I won all 3 scratch races. I swept the program in D1 and I was so happy. And after the races, I came to my mom and I gave her a big hug and kiss and I said, I won this for you. And then I said, what do you think? And I was so happy. And she says, Bryan, you give me a heart attack and I will never go to one of your races again. I do not like you racing and I'll never come watch you again. And she never did. So I give my mom a heart attack. I won every race and I was shocked. I thought she'd be very happy, but she was very upset and very freaked out when she saw how fast I rode and everything. So I was kind of a blowaway for me. My mother's so shocked and sad and stuff, and so that was it. She never came to a race again, but she loved me a lot and I love that lady so much. Probably the worst thing I did that year was one of my tuner, Jerry Fairchild, he was there and I had done a lot of work to my bike that day, and they asked me, who was your mechanic today? And I said, I did all the work today. I did all the work. And I forgot Jerry was in the stands. And after the races, he got very mad at me. He said, Bryan, you did all the work to your bike? And I said, I did today. And he says, but I am the one who makes your bike fast. And Jerry got very mad at me and he said, I will never work on your bike again. I'm done with you. And he was done with me. And that was my big mistake. I didn't say thank you to Jerry Fairchild. So if you're a rider, always thank your sponsors. Always thank the ones who make you go fast. And I didn't do that. And that was one of my big teenage mistakes. Not thanking somebody who was very special to me. And I regret that to this day. Always thank people who help you out.
Yeah, always thank people who help you out. That was a big, that was my biggest mistake probably of my whole young racing career. Is he was in the stands and with his wife, and I just screwed up. We all can make mistakes, right? We all are not perfect, and I was not perfect, and they were mad. I went to his house. I begged Jerry, please, stay with me, because he was the heart and soul of my motorcycle. And his wife said, nope, we're done with you. And it was really a sad day in my life. I went to Corona at his ranch, and I went inside their house begging his wife, Ida, and Jerry, that, he would come back to me. I'm begging them, please. And they said, no, we're done with you. Always thank your sponsors. That's one of my big mistakes. But I went ahead and just was devastated when Jerry dumped me. And it was my fault, in essence. But Jerry was getting out of Speedway too pretty soon. He ended up stopped with Doug Farrell. He stopped sponsoring him. And Jerry only had about 8 more years of life left. He was kind of elderly. So I think he was trying to get out of Speedway slowly. He felt his health was deteriorating, and he only had a couple years left to live. He was an old man, in his 70s at the time, early 70s. So that was kind of the situation. But I think he was trying to get out of Speedway as well. But I did have a really good last race in D1. I'll tell you about that right now. It was at the 78 AMA World Championship qualifier, and it was a really great race at the Santa Ana Bowl, and we'll talk about that right now.
Today we have a great video of the Santa Ana Bowl, the Eddie West Field, the Speedway track around a quarter mile. It was a while ago, and we're going to talk about that. So thank you so much for your subscribing to my channel and watching the videos. It really means a lot. So we're going to talk more about the Speedway at the Santa Ana Bowl. So here we go. Every competitor in a sport needs motivation. I remember Kobe Bryan. He always was motivated by different things, what people said to him. I was motivated by them putting me in D2, and I said, I'm never going back there again when I was 17 years old, and I never did. Rumor has it that a young 12-year-old Greg Hancock, future world champion Greg Hancock, went to Santa Ana Bowl with his papa and used to watch the races. And I believe and I heard he used to be a Bumblebee fan, but that's not confirmed. But that's what I heard. People say they saw Greg Hancock in the stands. He liked the long tracks. He won how many world championships? 3 or 4? It was quite a year, my first year at the Santa Ana Bowl. I went from like a D2 rider to like the #1 in points in the D1 class. It was just amazing. I started winning everything. And there was great riders like Wild Bill Cody, Radical Randy Marsh, Denny Pyatt, rest in peace, and the Cowboy, John Cook. And many, many more really great D1 riders. And I was able to have a very good season. The Santa Ana Bowl was an AMA track, and at the end of the year they had an AMA World Qualifier, and they asked me if I wanted to be on the cover. I was on the cover of the World Qualifier. That was quite the honor. And the race happened, and I was doing really good. I won a few races and was doing good, and then my bike had a problem. And then I borrowed Ken Maley's bike, the Maley bike. I never rode that thing before. I was the kind of rider that I needed practice on a bike. I had no practice. And I had a race against Mike Bass and Kelly Moran, and I just couldn't ride that thing. Here's a picture of it right here. Despite my bike problems, I was able to end up in 4th place in that meet, the World Qualifier, out of 16 D1 very fast riders. So I was pretty happy, even though I didn't win that meet. It was a 3-night qualifier. The first night was Santa Ana, and the last 2 were up north in Sacramento and Grass Valley. And the Sacramento was at the fairgrounds, the race there. And I did really good. My first race was against the world famous Mike Bass. And I did really good. I just had the gate on Mike and I won the race. And I was like, you know, I beat Mike Bass. That was pretty amazing. And then after the race, Mike Bass came up to me and said, "Hey, Bryan, what do you got in that engine? That thing's fast." And I said, "It's a Jerry Fairchild engine, Mike, and it's fast." And I was just amazed that my childhood hero, Mike Bass, came up to me, called me by my first name and said, "You're fast, dude." So I was very impressed, and I was very humbled actually that Mike Bass, my childhood hero, would talk to me like that. My next race was against the great Bobby Boogaloo Shorts. And I had I think gate 1 or 2, I can't remember. And Bobby was next to me at the starting line in Sacramento. The gate went up and Bobby outgated me. And I just stayed on Bobby's tail the whole time, all 4 laps. I was riding him as close. I was touching Bobby every turn for the 4 laps. And after the 3rd or 4th lap, before the finish line, Bobby budged a little bit and I took the lead and I beat Bobby at the checkered line. And I said, I've never seen anyone push Bobby off the pole before, but I was really lucky. I was scared. I thought I'm gonna crash Bobby every time I went into him. We were so close, I could just see my tire rubbing against his leathers. I was kind of nervous a little bit because I was really, really close to Bobby, but we didn't crash and ended up taking that race. It was great. My trip in Sacramento turned out really great. The first 2 races I won and I was in 1st place. And their track in Northern California. And I was really happy, but things took a turn for the worse. The next race or so, people were taking me out and I actually got in a horrible crash. Some guy railroaded me from behind and my hand got stuck in the back wheel. I don't know how it didn't get torn off. I thought I broke it. I was just injured and I was gonna go to the hospital. It was terrible. So that was pretty much the end of my night. I had a really great night and then boom, it was over. And then that was the night that Porky McCabe got in that crash also. He hit the Bondo on the track. The night before there was car races and I guess Bondo got put on the track. And he went right through a railroad post, a tie, and he severed his spinal cord and he was handicapped for life. And he died a few years later. That really just bummed me out. Me being in the hospital with a broken arm, possibly, but it wasn't. And Porky having that horrible injury, which destroyed his life. Porky's horrible crash, and then just later, Denny Pyatt crashed in England, and it just kind of ruined things for me. And I decided I should go to college. I realized that maybe I shouldn't be racing, or maybe that was me next. I would die, or that I would have a serious injury and stuck in a wheelchair. So I decided that maybe I should change directions, get an education, and change my life. So that pretty much was the end of my Speedway days. I realized after my injury and watching everyone die and get injured that maybe I should just be careful. But you only have one chance as a young person. I should have went for it and went to England, but who knows how it would have turned out. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for watching the AMA Santa Ana Bowl races and the MA World Qualifier. It was a great time, great experience, had a great memory, and that led to my demise as a Speedway rider as well. So it had good and bad, and there's some good and bad to racing. It has a beautiful side and it has an ugly side as well. So thank you so much for watching the video and liking this video, subscribing to my channel. We appreciate it so much. It means a lot. So please like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell.
Well, that was it. It was kind of a sad ending of my early days because, you know, when you're young, you have that chance to go to Europe. That's why I always tell these young riders that you should go for it because you only have one chance. And, you know, that when it passes, it passes. It's over, you know, like something like that. And I decided, you know, through all the tragedy, I had a feeling that I was going to be either put in a wheelchair or I was going to die. I had a really strong feeling, and I said, I don't want that because I want it to be my age and have good health and be strong and to be doing this show with you. So that's one of the reasons why I decided I was going to back out. And Larry Costa, the famous Larry Costa, who went into Europe and raced for the Bellevue Aces, he told me, Bryan, you would be up there with the Penhalls and the Morans if you stood up with it, the racing, and you went over to Europe and raced. I don't know about that for sure, Larry, but I know that, you know, I could have progressed like everybody else, so who knows, you know, what would have happened. But, you know, you can't cry over spilt milk, and I'm really happy that, you know, I was able to go back to college, get a good education, get a job, and retire early, you know, as far as and have a good business. So things did work out for the best, and I can do this show with you. I have some really great memories and some really great experiences. I will not go down as the greatest Speedway in Speedway history, Speedway rider in Speedway history, but it doesn't matter. I just wanted to make D1 like I told you in the blog, and I did that. So I'm very happy with my success and everything. And I didn't need to be a world champion or a United States champion. I would have liked that one, I guess, but it wasn't in the cards, and I was happy, and I have my full health, so I can't complain. I see other people, you know, injured for life. A lot of my friends have massive injuries, you know, and I don't really have that many injuries, so I feel pretty darn good. So thank you so much for watching the early days of Bryan B. It was a great time, and I kind of regret a little bit about not, you know, going on and trying, but if I would have got hurt or died, then I probably would not be happy. So I went ahead and protected my body. That's why I did that. But thank you so much for watching. We have the Northern California week coming up this next week. You won't want to miss it. It's going to be really great. And we look forward to some really great shows coming up. And so thank you so much. We have the Bakersfield race tonight, so good luck. I hope everyone does good, and we're going to check that one out next. And thank you so much for joining us in the Bumblebee Hive. We had a great show talking about early day Speedway. I talk about everybody else, and so maybe tonight I just tell you a little bit about my story. I have a lot more, but we can talk about that later. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. Stay safe, you guys. Stay on two wheels. No crashes. And just be careful always. And we're going to see you next race.